I want to talk a little bit about an issue that I've dealt with and I see other people struggle with too. And that is, and it's a sensitive subject, but this surrounds mental health issues and working especially with black magic or even magic in general. Now, full disclaimer here, I have suffered from depression, anxiety, complex PTSD, and ADHD. I almost forgot that because, of course, ADHD. For the majority of my, teenage and adult life. Now, my advice that I have is sometimes I see issues come up and I know I've seen other practitioners talk about this issue too, especially when you're working with demonic entities and things like that. You really need to be very well grounded. Even if you have mental health issues, you have to be very well grounded in your day-to-day life to be able to, work with various forms of magic. And also realize that sometimes, if you're struggling with mental health, that may also impact not only the efficacy of your magic, but the type of magic you're doing. Now, full disclosure, I've had anger issues in the past. If you talked to me 10 years ago, I would have been cursing people every single day for the stupidest, dumb shit. Now, I've grown a lot. I've done the work of, many years of therapy, psychiatry, etc., and things like that. So some of it takes a little bit of, you do have to do a lot of the shadow work and self work. And I think when coming into working in the left-hand path and with black magic and working especially with demons, is that I had done well over a decade of this work on my own to deal with my mental illnesses, to be able to, combat my anxiety, to deal with my depression, to deal with my anger issues, which, if you knew me 10 plus years ago, I was an angry person. I might seem all chipper and happy now, get a little mildly irked from time to time, but no, I was freaking, my Mars is in Aries, and I brought that game with me every step of the way. Now, I look at things like baneful magic and stuff like that as, do you want to, thinking of things in terms of emergent issues, it's like, are you going to call the police because someone said something mean about you online? Probably not. Are you going to call the police because someone's at your door with an axe, that sort of thing? Probably. So, you kind of have to judge these things on a sliding scale of their severity. And often if you're clouded by mental illness, especially if it's not, I don't want to say not being treated, but if it's not properly controlled in a way. Because, I deal with seasonal depression a lot, and, I could feel at times, over the winter, just because I had such bad seasonal depression, on top of the, COVID isolation depression. That was a fun time. There were times I just felt kind of magically like there was a wet blanket over everything I was trying to do. It's not to say that I wasn't seeing results with things, but it was different. And I'm a very mood-based person, so it's like I sometimes have trouble, even sometimes with making my products. It's like, if I'm in a shit mood and something bad's happened, or I'm depressed, or I'm angry about something, that's not the right mood to be making a healing spell oil or a love spell oil in, or doing a love spell or a healing spell or something like that. So, you kind of have to think about how your mood and your mental illness affects your energetic flow. So that's something you really want to take into consideration when you're doing magic, and especially if you're looking at the efficacy of it. And if you're working with other practitioners or you're buying witchy products or things like that, is, all of you goes into what you're trying to do. And if you're not, if you are, in a very low state of mind, depression-wise. I've been there multiple times. I know what it feels like. Or if you are like vibrating out of your skin with anxiety, and sometimes I get that way with my ADHD. I was joking to myself tonight. I was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna make some dinner, and there's candle supplies that have been sitting in a bin on the floor since the last time I made candles in November. I should do something with that. So I made dinner and candles tonight. Technically a candlelit dinner, but that I was like, I could have just taken the bin downstairs or put it in the closet or something, but no, I decided, to make candles. The cats are knocking shit over. So with mental illness, it's very important to kind of to do a daily check, to keep yourself, kind of understanding what kind of frame of mind you're in to do any kind of magical work, whether you're doing divination or channeling things from the spiritual realm or underworld work. Now, a lot of that can be very beneficial to do, but it can also, if you're not in the right frame of mind, it can really fuck you up. And I've heard stories about that, and I've seen it happen. And knowing how to pull yourself back in if you find yourself in over your head because you're not in the right frame of mind to be practicing the type of magic that you're practicing. Especially like if you're looking at very advanced mental illnesses that involve things like, delusions, hallucinations, auditory or visual, paranoia, things like that. That working in that realm, I'm not saying it's beyond the realm of possibility. You just have to be very careful in doing that. Because again, you need, I also want to say, like, if you're in that kind of situation, have a safety buddy, have a friend you can, message and say, hey, I'm doing, I'm dealing with this, but I'm also, I'm having this experience, and kind of, especially if you get into, a little bit of a gray area, or you feel overwhelmed, or you're in trouble with something that you can't quite control, and you're not in the right mental state to deal with it. Because your energy flow is going to be very important. And I'm going to do a separate video just on sort of energetics in magic, because that's also very important. We're energetic bodies, and magic is energy. So we really have to kind of look at that flow and what we're putting out there. And a lot of it is, again, your mindset, and people, and I've been guilty of this one myself. It's like, oh, why isn't this ritual or this spell working? I keep doing this money magic, and, nothing's happening, and but some of it's your own negative self-talk. It's you're doubting yourself, you're doubting your abilities. I do it. We all probably do it from time to time, but, that's natural. But that's just an example of how your mental state influences your physical state and your state around you. Like, I had done a video before, and your energy can manifest in very different ways. And I've seen that happen because I have very intense energy. And I burn a lot of, obviously, as you can see behind me, I burn a lot of like glass encased candles. Now, I had one that I was burning like for, off and on for a couple weeks, or maybe even longer. The glass was all clear like this. I was in a boiling rage mood that day. And from the time I lit the candle until I looked at it later. Now, when I lit the candle, it was nice and clear. Now, this one just turned a bit black because of the airflow and the way I lit it. But it turned the entire thing, all the glass. this is still clear in here. It's just around the top. It's a little dark. The entire thing turned like charred black, even to the point where the candle wax in the candle turned black. And, I did I'm going to take a skeptical approach to this and see, like, okay, was the airflow different? Was there what was different? The candle was in the same place on the altar it always was. What else could have happened that could have caused this? Didn't, if I lit it with the match weird, it would have just been like on one side. And it was just that I was in such boiling hot rage energy, and it absorbed it. So now if I was doing something baneful, hey, great. That would have been a great time to be doing some nasty nasty hexes and curses. But, you know, if I was doing healing work, fuck, that would have been bad. You know, but I mean, this was just a goddess, a Astarte candle that I was burning at the time. And because I have a working relationship with Astarte, it was a goddess of love and war, you know, that just kind of went and absorbed it straight in. And that's a way that your energy can kind of manifest in your magic that you're doing in unexpected ways. So now think of your mental health energy manifesting in ways. So one of the things, especially with working with different spiritual entities, whether they're demons, angels, archangels, gods, goddesses, etc., there's people will talk sometimes about things like egregores and thought forms and things like that. Where it's like you think you're working with Belial. You're working with your version of Belial. And we all have our own versions of Belial. But, you know, when we all sit there and talk, and when you look at all the shared things, there's a lot of commonalities in the experience we have. But if you're having something that's just very off, you might be working with like a thought form, like a mental projection of what that entity is. And it might not necessarily be that entity. It might be something, it might be an entity, it might be a trickster entity or a parasitic entity or something else that's out there, because there's a lot of different types of spirits out there and not all of them are nice. So that's just one thing to think about, because I've run into people that claim to have been working with Belial or Lucifer or Shemyaza or, you know, and Lilith and all these. I'm like, you would be an entirely different person if you worked with any of them. And you're not. You haven't done the shadow work. You're, you know, horribly misogynistic, abusive, and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, it's obvious that if that person was really working with Belial, they would have been put through the ringer of all the shadow work that comes with working with an entity like Belial. If they were really working with Lucifer, they would have been put through how to practice self-love and self-care without being selfish and narcissistic to the point of being a malignant narcissist, and so on and so forth. So that's something to take into consideration here. And I don't really have a great grand conclusion here so far, but I just want, you know, that's just something I was thinking about tonight, is like how our mental health, and you don't have to be diagnosed with anything, you know, you don't have to be bipolar, borderline, whatever. You know, we all suffer from, you know, depression from time to time. Sometimes it's just, you know, responsive depression. It's reactionary to, gee, we live in a really shitty world right now. You know, we've been, you know, on varying stage, depending where you are, varying stages of lockdown, every quarantine, everything with COVID and all that. It's a different world out there now. And a lot of people who didn't have mental illnesses a year or so ago now do, because, you know, we all kind of have this collective shared kind of PTSD from the past year we've lived. And it's not, and it hasn't been all bad. I mean, I can't, you know, yeah, it's been terrible in a lot of ways, but, you know, also I've made my business very successful in that time, and I've grown a lot as a person spiritually and whatnot. So, and have found happiness in my own little strange corner of the universe. But that's just what I'm saying, like, just kind of to wrap up. And I'm never all that great at wrapping up, but, you know, just kind of be aware, be self-aware, and that's the key. You know, if you're in a crappy mood, don't force yourself to do a healing spell or a love spell. If you're sick, don't do a love spell or a healing spell. Now, if you're in a terrible, shitty, I want to burn the world to the ground mood, call Abaddon and, you know, do something baneful, you know, if it's necessary. Now, if someone, like, you know, bumped into you on the street or whatever, do you need to death curse them? Of course not. No, that's not what I'm saying. Again, thinking about what you're doing there when it comes to that, and being mindful of your energy, no matter what that means. Anyways, I probably will speak more on this later. I'm going to do a separate video at some point on energetics and magic. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. Love y'all.